What's the right approach for you for budgeting? Is it cash-based or is it goals-based? I'll explain the difference, help you figure out which one's best for you. That and more coming up. My name's Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. Budgeting is the blocking and tackling in your financial life. And that analogy, what I mean is it's often the unnoticeable work that decides the game, right? It is so important, and yet when it's done well, it's often overlooked. Makes it look easy. All you see is the big plays, the Hail Marys, the scoreboard, and you think, oh gosh, we've got some playmakers. No, it's the blocking and tackling, doing the little things right to allow you to execute the big plays. Honestly, it's budgeting, and I've just had throughout 20 years of experience and collectively 100 years collectively on the KFG team with all of our advisors. It's just common that you're helping folks that are in maybe a financial crisis with budgeting. You're helping folks that are trying to build the right habits and they're early in their career and their financial journey, their financial foundations, help them with budget. Those wealth builders, those who have made, and earned lots of income and have been able to capture a lot, saving a lot, working on budgeting, and those that are even in retirement and have millions saved up, still budgeting. It's crucial. Now at each of those stages, it might look a little bit different and the approach might be a little bit different. Obviously, if you're in crisis, I've often said, involvement is the catalyst of change. So that is very deep, that's very intense, that is you're mapping out every dollar where it's going. You're saying no to pretty much every want and very selective on the needs and making sure that they're trimmed and tight. Versus, as you're building wealth and have lots of income, budgeting can look very different. Now I'm going to oversimplify here. You got to be working with your CFP on the right approach. But what approach should you take for budgeting? The first is the sort of traditional route to budgeting. And if I were to I think you know what this is, but it is essentially taking a look at your normal monthly expenses and creating a category for each of those. And the way I did this early in my career, the spreadsheet that we built, and yes, there's lots of apps now that make it more sophisticated and easy to track. I haven't found a great app that helps you lay out what your monthly budget is. And so still like Excel, but this was almost 20 years ago now that I built this, and essentially it is for your normal monthly expenses, you target how much income you expect, and if your income's variable, then I would want you to err on the low side, but something realistic. And then you break up your expenses into three categories. Your fixed monthly expenses, and you list out all of your expenses that happen every month, and it's going to be the exact same amount. So that's your mortgage, that's your car payment, that's your Netflix, that's any subscription. It's going to happen every month. It's going to be the exact same. And then right below that, you've got your variable monthly expenses, and those expenses are the ones that happen every month, but the amounts can vary. Sometimes the amounts that vary are in your control, like groceries or going out to eat or shopping. Sometimes they vary and it's not in your control. Utilities, fuel, those sorts of things. But there is some variation, and you want to know how much those are so that you can see, well, what's the band? Do we have enough margin and flex? And then the final category is savings, and specifically that's saving up for retirement, but more importantly, I'm going to say just as important, is saving up for non-monthly expenses that are coming up. We call that delayed spending. And because yes, your budget, if you have a zero-sum budget where you're tracking every dollar coming in and every dollar going out for all the monthly expenses, you're going to be miserable. That's not adequate. And most people view budgeting that way. That's not adequate because not all of your expenses happen every single month. And if you aren't proactive on the ones that are non-monthly expenses, and I'm not saying they're just wants, some needs, non-monthly. If you're not thinking ahead, how much is that going to be, and therefore dividing it up into a monthly amount and saving that, you're going to be caught flat-footed. Use a credit card, use the emergency fund. It's not fund, retirement and some long-term goals because you're constantly sort of chasing your tail. So that's the traditional way of budgeting. And I've heard it said before that, well, do you have to build that budget from scratch? No, typically you don't. Typically, you can just look at a regular months of expenses or 3 months of expenses and look at your bank app or your bank account summaries and see, okay, well, and you can fill it out. You can build it from there. Yes, very geeky. Yes, your financial advisor, CFP might help you with that, or maybe they'd want to do it, but fairly easy to do. And essentially, it's sort of ground up. What's actually happening? Let's put it in a budget and let's see what the net result is. From there, does this budget give you enough flexibility to achieve the financial goals that you want? Is it balanced between this is what we're spending today and these are the things we'd like to do in the future, and therefore we can accomplish both? And you work with your CFP on building that out. I mentioned, gosh, before I go to the next one, which is the whole purpose for this video, by the way, is if you don't have a plan for those non-monthly expenses, that budget's going to get a break, okay? It won't even last a month, okay? So really, whatever approach you take to budgeting, it needs to be part of a 3 bank account system. 3 bank account system where your checking account, you've got one account, that's for your immediate everyday, monthly, or every month expenses. That's where you build your budget off of. But then your second account is a savings account typically. Mine's a money market, it's up to you. And that's where you're identifying categories or really itemized list of known non-monthly expenses. So this is Christmas, this is birthdays, this is car repairs, this is new car, this is home repairs, this is vacations and those sorts of things. Things that you're going to say yes to, but that they don't happen every month. And you come up with how much you think those expenses are going to be at whatever time, divided by 12, and you're saving up into that, okay? And then when those expenses come up, no need to worry. You draw out of that savings account or money market, and you keep on going. And then the third bank account is your emergency fund. No one can fully anticipate every expense out there. And when there's interruptions in your income or surprise expenses or health issues, you've got a cushion to fall back on. That's the proper way to budget, if you will. It's really building that budget into an overall cash flow management system. But I digress. Okay, so back to kind of the approaches to budgeting. So I mentioned sort of the traditional route. The next one, or the other one, flips that on its head. And this is hard, this is, I would say, not possible to do when you're in crisis, and maybe not fully possible when you're in that financial foundations. This is for wealth builders for sure, and hopefully something that wealth foundations or foundation builders can get to. And that's a goals-based budget. And I'm going to go back to Stephen Covey, famous back in the 90s. You can see the clip, and it's kind of funny to think we dressed like that and thought that was cool. But where he talks about, well, if you've got rocks and you've got pebbles, you've got sand, you've got water, and then you've got a cylinder, you've got a bucket, if you will, and it's all got to fit in there. If you put the water and then the sand, then the gravel, then the rocks, it's not all going to fit. It won't fit. But if you put the big rocks in first, and then you put the gravel, and then you put the sand, then you put the water, it all fits, okay? So the goals-based approach with budgeting is, listen, what are the big rocks? What do we want to accomplish? And the reason why I say goals is you might look at this, you could look and say, well, the big rocks are, we've got to pay the mortgage, we've got to do those things. And yes, that's true, but I'm talking more of, no, the financial life we envision, financial freedom. What's it take? What are those big rocks? And likely that is, if you don't have an emergency fund, building up that cash reserve. If you've got debt, paying down debt aggressively. If you are aggressively saving up for the future, or you want financial freedom, building wealth, then it's saving up, whether that's retirement accounts or even non-retirement accounts. Those are your big buckets. And you set those in place first, and then you fit everything else around it. Hard to do. It's hard to do when every time you turn on the TV, there's ads. Every time you go and hang out with friends, there's opportunities to spend money. It's hard to do when there's so many things pulling at your dollars. And I get it. You're going to define financial success with balance. So I'm not telling you, not to do those things. And the only thing that can fit in the cylinder are these big rocks. Absolutely not. No way. You'd be miserable. No one wants to live like that. But if you can get really focused and budget based on those goals, then right about now, when many people either get a bonus, get a raise, get a tax refund, something like that, not everyone, certainly not everyone, but you just increase the amount that you're saving or increase the amount you're putting towards those goals, because you just say, well, we've got some found money or we've got some additional dollars. We'll just make it fit. We'll throw that towards the goals intentionally, and we'll let everything else fit around it. If you're not disciplined, that can be a dangerous way to budget, because all of a sudden things get out of sync, and a credit card bill is one that you can't manage, and so on. But that goals-based approach means as you get new dollars, you just know exactly where they're going. They're just funding that goal, and you fit life around it. So that's mostly for wealth builders. A lot of financial foundations should be aspiring to that. What's the right approach for you? Work with your CFP, and then not only what is the right approach, what's the right system to build in that budget, and then what's the right tracking mechanism as well. They can help you with all of that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@Korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.